All right, welcome back everybody to the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. Today I'm going to show you how you have to play a premium hand pre-flop with a few callers in front, and then how you have to continue to execute with a good, bad, or mediocre hand on the flop. And you'll see that even with bad hands, when you're making these continuation bets, if you get called, you actually might improve later and still be able to win the hand. So let's get into it. I have ace king of spades, 3,000 chips, blinds are 10-20, which means I have a pretty large stack. It's about 150 big blinds, which is very, very large. I have a raise from under the gun to 40, and under the gun plus one calls 40, under the gun plus two calls 40, and it's back on me with ace king suited. Now, the move here, if there was a raise to 40, I would 3-bet to 120. If there was a call behind, then I would raise to 160. But with two calls, so basically a raise and two calls behind me, I'm gonna raise to 200. So all I'm doing is adding 40 to my raise amount there. So with ace king, I raise to 200. The action folds all the way back to the original raiser under the gun, and he makes the call for 200, followed by two other calls from all the players in the hand. So we're moving to the flop here with four players, and I have my ace king. So let's see what happens. The flop comes 4-9 jack, and all three of my opponents check over to me. Now, just like with any other hand, it doesn't really matter that we 3-bet or that the pot's a little bit more. I have over 20 big blinds. I have a bad hand here because it's worse than third pair. So I will make a continuation bet of half the pot in an effort to get all my opponents to fold right now. So I make my bet. So right out of the gate, I'm called by the player from under the gun, and then two other folds occur afterwards. So while it's pretty unlikely that I have the best hand right now, my continuation bet still cleared the field, so now I'm heads up. And, honestly, I'm kind of ready to give up on the hand, although there are still probably a few cards that I can make to win the hand, but let's see how it plays out. So my opponent actually checks again on the turn, and here's where the poker model recommends pumping the brakes. So you tried to make your play on the flop, it was unsuccessful. Your opponent is showing that he has some sort of hand that he's willing to call with, and now it's back on me. So I'll just check, really not that interested in the rest of this hand and seeing what happens. After my check though, an ace comes on the river and my opponent checks again to me. So now I have to think about how the hand played out and try to figure out what to do here. So my opponent called on the flop, which typically means some sort of pair. Maybe it's a 4, maybe it's a 9, maybe a jack, could be something like pocket 10s, pocket queens, pocket whatever, that he called on the flop with. Now remember, I made a 3-bet on pre-flop, so anything like pocket aces, pocket kings, even queens, there's probably going to be a 4-bet pre-flop. So we can rule out those hands, for our purposes today. So queen 10 is also a hand, so we think about draws. That's an open-ended straight draw. But really, the 2 on the turn is kind of insignificant. So what I'm looking at here is a situation where it's probably a misdraw, or he has one pair that I'm beating. So I actually am in a position now to make a value bet. So a value bet is a bet that's kind of small enough to get my opponent to call, where I'm in a position where I'm pretty certain that I have the best hand. So if I were to check behind here, I might be missing a lot of value. So what I do here is I bet half pot. It's a value bet. It's going to be hard for my opponent to put me on an ace because I made this bet on the flop, and I really showed no other betting or anything else until now. So if he's sitting there with one pair, he might be thinking I'm trying to bluff with the ace. And so you can see here that my opponent calls, and to my benefit, he had queen jack, and I win a nice pot hitting that ace on the river. So the general concept here is, again, we're going to 3-bet pre-flop with premium hands no matter what. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have a big hand on the flop, but we're still going to follow through with continuation bets. And as you can see in this hand, I improved to have the winning hand on the river, where my opponent was kind of passive And yes, he got unlucky, but I was in control of the hand on the flop and was able to make it to the river without having a good hand until that card came. So again, let us know if you have questions. Thanks for tuning in today, and we'll talk to you on the next one. As always, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. For more training tools and Texas Hold'em advice, subscribe to our YouTube channel or pay us a visit at thepokermodel.com to see our weekly articles, bi-weekly podcasts, and other episodes of the Poker Model Hand Breakdown. Until next time.